T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey everybody, Chad Westport here, and we are back with another edition of Just One Thing, and that's where I go out into the grow community and talk to experienced growers about just one thing they think all new growers should know about. And I'm sure many of you are already familiar with the guest. He does not need an introduction, and he probably has a million just one things because he's been doing this for a while. But you know what? I kind of brought him into a corner. I was like, "Can you give me your just one thing about this one thing?" So, how you doing today, Scotty?
Hey, what's going on, Chad? Thank you so much for having me, man. Huge respect to you.
Oh, dude, thank you for making the time. I am stoked that you're here because recharge is the one thing that I wanted to talk to you about today because so many people are using it. I mean, I'm using it. And there's a lot of curious people out there. So I wanted to hit just some of the kind of the basic questions with you about recharge, if I could.
Yeah, you know what? I'd like to. I've been doing the Dude Grows show for what, 8, 9, almost 10 years. And over that time, I've gotten kind of lazy about explaining recharge. So it'd be great. You keep me in practice a little bit. But yeah, it's I don't know if we can stay with just one thing on recharge because there's a bunch of things that are going on in there because there's a bunch of things going on in your soil. And I would promise, I don't want to make this a recharge commercial. I want to talk about how amazing soil biology is, maybe talking a little bit about how to turn some dead dirt or something inert into something alive that you call soil.
Yeah, no, that's a great aspect to take it because I had some questions that it might sound like a sales pitch, but it's not, folks, because these are the questions that I honestly get. And as a person who's on the dudegrows.com website and I see the questions there, like these are questions that people are answering or asking. And
Yeah.
As I understand it, recharge has microbes in it. And you're talking about, you brought up the extra point of turning like dead old soil into something useful. So maybe what is the benefit of like having microbes or using recharge for that matter?
Microbes are a buffer. So whether it's when we all have probably heard about mycorrhizae and how amazing mycorrhizae is. And what that really is, that's a fungus mycorrhizae root. It's a fungus that grows all around the root. It expands the surface area and nutrient holding capacity of it, but it's also this buffer. It's this buffer between the pathogens got to get through it. It holds nutrition and it protects the plant and it's alive. So that fungus turns that inert soil or that inert dirt, or hey, I use inert media. I use a cocoa core, but cocoa core is super reactive unless you give it some microbes. Once you add something to it, whether before recharge, I used to use earthworm castings, but getting some kind of biological life into your dirt to turn it into soil. And when I say soil, I think soil is alive and dirt I say is dead.
I like wordplay, and I chuckled in my head when you said inert dirt because inert dirt is fun to say, but it's not
shirt,
inert dirt, right? Inert dirt is a shirt. Heyo. But it's inert dirt if there isn't fungus among us. So recharge helps get the fungus among us.
It's been gosh, what is it called? It was a great book that I just Ways of Being by James Birtle. And it's a little much, but it talks about how they would go and study, the Wood Wide Web, and they would go and study these forests. And they said, you can't find a single thing in a forest. Like there's just nothing, you won't find nature just fills, it's not, nothing is singular It's all connected. It's all interconnected. It's really a trip, man.
So it's that balance that we always talk about, you know, whether it's nutrients or whether it's biology in the soil, always talking about balance.
Yeah. You know what I was just thinking though, when we were talking about cocoa coir and I said it was inert, it's not, because nature abhors a vacuum. Nature fills a vacuum. Cocoa coir is trichoderma all over it, man, because it's right for trichoderma to grow on it, man. You'd have to work hard not to get it to grow on it.
Badass, man. Learning some new stuff. So what is the best stage or a good stage of growth to use recharge or to start using recharge?
Man, I'll explain what it is, and like I won't try to make this into a commercial, but I will say, so recharge is that mycorrhizae fungi, and mycorrhizae fungi is a fuzz, and as soon as the root, it's a fungus, so as soon as the root pops, and I use it when I soak my paper towel with my seeds, as soon as that root pops, it's touching a little bit of that recharge. It's getting mycorrhizae. It's getting inoculated with the fungus. And I use the gross analogy of, if you've ever gotten a fingernail fungus, as the fingernail grows, the fungus grows with it. Well, as your radical root, as the root tip grows, the mycorrhizae grows with it. So it's when you just take a giant root mass in a 10-gallon container and pour recharge on it for the first time, it takes a while for it to inoculate all those roots and to get into all those roots. When you inoculate it as a little seed, every bit of that root as it expands has mycorrhizae on it. And that's good, because mycorrhizae doesn't like a bunch of fertilizers. When mycorrhizae gets, these things are in nature, there's a reason why they're there. Mycorrhizae is there to make fertilizer available to the plant. Well, if you're loading it up with a bunch of salt-based fertilizer, just a bunch of fertilizer in general, the mycorrhizae doesn't have to work that hard. So it's good if you get it on in the beginning, where it's just on there and it's growing. It's always been there. It's a lot better than letting it, trying to get it to, colonize on a big giant root system. So I say get it on really early, get it on your clones pretty early. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great tip, man. Just that little bit of dusting on the paper towel.
And by the way, the recharge packets are like $3. I'm not trying to make a fortune off this. I'm trying to get people to appreciate soil biology. My total game change when I started with soil biology, and I was doing rock wool. And rock wool was so reactive. If you didn't have the pH perfect, if you had a little bit high or too low parts per million, and it was because it was bare wire. It was those bare roots there was just no protective coating on them. And so once I started using earthworm castings all the way. Then I started using, I have a bamboo nursery down in Florida that is in sand. It's 97% sand. So I had to learn some tricks to keep that nutrient in the soil. So one of the tricks, we talk about the mycorrhizae, which expands the surface area. But man, those bacteria, the bacillus bacteria that I put in recharge are the things, I call it making the soil sticky. And man, I need better analogies, all right? Because the fingernail fungus analogy is pretty gross. And waking up in the morning after maybe a night of partying and going like that, and what's on your teeth is bacteria. And they want to stay alive. They don't want to get washed away. So they stick into your teeth. Well, we can do that same thing with bacteria in the soil. We can get them sticking to the soil, sticking into that root zone. And what sticks to them? They're all sticky. It's not magic that they're growing. They're growing because they're grabbing nutrients. So they're holding nutrients now. So that's another part of it, man. You've got the mycorrhizae that's right around the root. And then you've got those bacteria, and those bacteria are able to be moved.
The bare wire analogy was spot on, but no, the other ones are good. They're kind of like, ooh, but we all relate, and that's why everybody said, ooh.
And I was trying. I'm not a technical person. I'm somebody I actually came from growing cannabis, but I've got a new segment we're going to put in our show. It's called No Regrets, and it's just you give a regret that you got. And my first biggest regret is not treating cannabis like a plant. I treated it like it was some, business system, maybe,
Well,
but,
The saying is, bigger the roots, the bigger the fruits. And this
Sure.
kind of goes along with recharge. It's like the better the roots, the better the fruits, because you
Yeah.
have that biology. And, we all hear about organic growing and the flowers and the terpene content. So this is, a step on that road.
And what we talk about, there's not one single thing in nature. If you try
Mm-hmm.
to, nature will fill that vacuum. So if I just try to do, cannabis roots in hydroponics with air and, salt-based nutrients on there, it is tough because nature wants to fill that vacuum with root rot, with pythium, you know what I mean? Stuff like that, man. So the idea behind recharging, just using soil microbes in general, is to fill that space with
Mm-hmm.
either, dude loves when I say this, either beneficial or commensal microbes. And commensal is just like, I know some commensal people, man. They just kind of take up space, They're not really good. They're not really bad, but it keeps the jerks from showing up.
I thought you were going to say invaginate for a second. Shout out to DGC, but that's
It's a real word. Here we go.
Okay.
Ready? Come on. Mycorrhizae is this fungus, right? A fungus has got to grab onto the roots. Well, how's it going to do it? It's it's going to what? It's going to just try to stick there. It's got to set some hooks in there somehow, right? It's got to keep from sliding off it. So it sticks its little hook in there. All right. It kind of makes its little way. All right. And I can't help it if they call it invagination. You're welcome to look that up, sir. All right. It's a real medical term, bro. No, they have it in college books. All right.
But all right, I could play it in Scrabble.
Yeah, I dare you with a family member. But these are amazing things. And what's really amazing is they didn't even figure this out till 50, 60 years ago. Not even, man. The girl Monica Gagliano that did actually it was another girl, but they were studying these things, these microbial activity in like the mid 90s, 1997. Monica Gagliano's paper got laughed out. Like they were just like, no, you can't put this in there. Or maybe it was when it was finally accepted, but she was laughed out of the university system until people figured out that what she was saying was true. That it is all interconnected, that plants do have intelligence, man.
It sucks how that happens sometimes. I just did another segment on breeding, and my breeder tip was to learn Mendel and the pea experiment because it outlined the laws of inheritance as far as passing on traits. Now, when he did his experiment back in like the 1860s and published it, he got laughed at because they thought it was just a combination like yellow and blue make green. Anyways, to paraphrase, he died, and then later they're like, ooh, this guy was spot on. And now that is Mendel and the pea. That's the basics of genetics and breeding. So look that up if you want. But to recharge though, I've got this packet. You mentioned I can dust like the paper towel with it. How do you typically apply it? Do you mix it with water and then pour it in, or? Okay.
Yep. Half a teaspoon per gallon, and I put it in a 2-gallon watering can, so I just use a teaspoon. I might go a little heavy because I have some extra laying around, but I use it once a week. I'll go over. I use bottom feeding systems, a wicking system, so I don't really need to water my plants, but once a week, maybe once every 5 days or so, I give them a little recharge. The reason I call it recharge is because you can tell when you give it to them. You come back and your plants are a little bit recharged, man. Like give them a health shake or something.
Now, the all-important question, especially because you said you got a little extra laying around, can I burn my plants with this? I mean, there's probably, you can, if you poured 55-gallon drum on a 2-inch plant, you could kill it. But can I burn my plants with recharge?
I've been ridiculous with the amount before. I did put heaping tablespoons in a 2-gallon watering can and have not burnt my plants. So it is really tough too. It is really tough too. The other thing, the bacteria and the fungi, those are going to bloom until they can't bloom anymore. Just because you put more in there doesn't mean it's not like a chemical. It's these starters, and they're going to bloom until their resources are exhausted. And then the humic and fulvic acids, we put some organic chelators in there to make it easy for the plant to absorb the nutrients once they become available.
Actually, looking at the ingredient list here, and there's so many unpronounceable names. Those are probably the microbes and stuff. I know you said bacillus earlier, and I see bacillus subtilis, and there's a few others here, but that's the one I can pronounce very easily, so I did. But it looks like.
Can I say something real quick about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
They have to be paired up. I have a formulator that does this for me. I tell him what I want. We talk about what we want, and he's amazing. He's very amazing. He knows the tools to use. The most important thing is he knows what that goes together, because a lot of these things you'll see there's a lot of marketing in this stuff, and there's tons and tons of microbes, but they don't work together well. So, or they won't work on the type of plants that we're growing. I'm doing this. I can say cannabis. It's right behind you. I'm doing this for cannabis. Okay. So like mycorrhizae, you can have all that fun wood wide web stuff and all the mycorrhizae that you want. But unless you're growing pine trees and trying to populate a forest, that is going to do zero for cannabis. A ton of other Glomus intraradices is the one that forms an association with cannabis, man. There's not many other, or at least that's the one that is known, that is commercially available. So when you're looking at mycorrhizae and you're growing cannabis, or you're looking at the ingredients, you can have all the ecto and endo, blah, blah. I'd rather just have a decent amount of Glomus intraradices, because that's the one I'm buying,
Again, that's a very good point too, because there is a lot of marketing in this space, and there's a lot of things that will work on other plants because that's what has been studied. But it's so important to find things that work specifically with cannabis, because microbes that may work on celery don't work on a rose plant, that don't work on cannabis. So that's an excellent point, and that's why I encourage people to support maybe real growers, like for lack of a better term, So
hey man, you were saying that this might work on one plant and might work on the other, and I have a rebuttal for you. First off, I love hanging out with you, brother. Thank you for inviting me on, man.
Yeah.
All right, ready for the exception? Is kelp.
Yes.
Kelp seems to work on everything. I mean, we can eat kelp. It's loaded with micronutrients, but it's loaded with natural growth hormones. It's the fastest growing plant in the world. Kelp's a plant, and it is the fastest growing plant in the world, man. So when you take those, even if you just get the salt out of it, grind that stuff up. Remember, they just watch seaweed and throw it right on the crops? It's because the reason it's the fast growing plant in the world is because it's got hormones that make it that way. So when you take those hormones and dry them out and sprinkle them on our plants, it gives them a boost, man.
And these are natural growth hormones too. They're not the gnarly, PGRs, plant growth regulator. They still are, but they aren't. They're a natural. They're not a synthetic. It's much better. And anybody who's used kelp has seen the benefit too. Like I've never used kelp and not been like, that did nothing. So
right.
Good ingredient to have in the mix there. So really kind of a all around support system for that roots to get nutrients and to be a buffer.
Man, I was laughing. We were talking before the show. I didn't know if I wanted to say this, but I had a company before. I'll leave the names out, but I had a company beforehand, and I worked with this businessman, and I was telling him how amazing microbes are. I wanted to design a package, and we put together a kelp product, a bacteria product, a fungi product, all these different products together, because that's the way it used to be done in business. And as soon as I got away from him and was able to do it myself, I asked my formulator, can we do this all in one? Would it hurt to add mycorrhizae to the bacteria? Would it hurt to add humic and fulvics and aminos to it? What about if we put some kelp in there? And we were able to, that's why we refined the formula, but we're able to do something where it really does work. I mean, I use my Grow Dots, which is a simple single part solution or fertilizer. And then I use Recharge, and I use silica. That's all I use. Shout out to Jaron with silicium, monosilicic acid. Those are the 3 products I use, and I get really good results. I will say I got some great strains in my pocket, though. That helps. Helps make you look good, right?
You might know a few people. You might.
But it's so nice, man. With somebody, it's easy to look good when people are like, "Hey, here's the DDC Cup winner, emergency. Hook it up."
Yeah. Well, still got to grow it right, though. So, yeah.
You know what, though? When it comes to
give
growing
yourself
this
more
stuff, seriously, when you grow this stuff, consistency is key. So, I mean, that's why I use, whatever you're going to do, just keep consistency. And it's how we were just talking to the autoflower guys yesterday. You can't screw that up. I mean, at least with us in vegetative, you get a little bit of chance to recover. But man, consistency is everything. You keep them feeding and keep feeding them and keep them eating. That makes sense, right?
I'm with it.
Hey.
Yep. Yeah. Well, dude, this has been badass, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to kind of break down a little bit about how to use it, what's it doing, and that I can't really burn my plants unless I completely disregard all logic. So those are good things. Because again, those are the questions out there. And a lot of people, again, we're all sort of looking towards soil health now. We turn to this plant for our own health. Now we're kind of turning to products like these for the plant health, because we realize the better the plant, the better the medicine. So thank you, Scotty.
And remember, nature fills a vacuum, so fill it up yourself with good microbes, good beneficials, and you don't want them pathogens coming in. That's why I do it.
Yep, definitely. Well, I want to let everybody know too, they're probably already familiar with you from the Dude Grows show. So dudegrows.com, also Dude Grows on YouTube. Make sure you guys check those out. But for the recharge, it's realgrowers.com, correct?
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Awesome. And I always like to give guests, a last word. Is there anything bonus that you wanted to mention or shout out to anything? The floor is yours, sir.
I don't know. I think I did it, man. Nature fills a vacuum. So don't let your plants, the biggest mistake I ever made, my biggest regret, I used to hydrogen peroxide my roots, trying to keep everything away from them. Hey, I had this rock wool, deep water culture stuff going. I got to keep these things clean. And it's the opposite. You got to get them dirty, but with the good kind of dirt. So yeah, once I learned that, my grows got a lot easier and my bud got a lot better.
Right on. Well, thank you. Thank you again for the time, and everybody watching. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll have more Just One Things coming up shortly, so keep it locked here on the Chad Westport YouTube channel, and make sure you go check out Scotty Real on the Dude Grow Show. Until next time, right everybody. On, catch you later.
Right on, brother.
Fuck you, Westport.